Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. If you are watching on Zoom on our WNST TV channel or anywhere in our new Baltimore Positive community, you'll be shocked that I gussied up and I put on a nice shirt and I'm not wearing a tie and I'm letting my locks flow here for one segment and one segment only. I have not really spoken to this young lady since she was a young lady and I was a young boy. In 1974, she was my first grade teacher at Colgate Elementary School, which Johnny O is building a newer, better, bigger palace over on the east side where North Point Boulevard meets Eastern Avenue, where I spent all of my childhood. This is going to be one of the real fun segments. Don Moeller has so inspired me as a teacher of mine and as a high school guidance counselor and my football friend for the last 25 years and family friend, that we started doing this 2 years ago to do Baltimore Positive. And I found that, I remember there used to be right near my birthday. My birthday's October 14th. There used to be a professional study day for all the teachers. And, I would get my birthday off for, a half a day or, Columbus Day, or they combine it. So, I always got, a freebie. And what I would do is sit home and watch, the Royals play the Yankees or something because I liked baseball. And baseball was on. But I found out that October 4th is International Teachers Day. We don't really celebrate it in America. We do May. So I decided to take the month of October to launch Baltimore Positive with Teachers Appreciation Month. And Julie Janda, Miss Janda, as I would call you in 1974, the only reason you're first is because Miss Wassel, my kindergarten teacher, who I know you love, is down in Yulee, Florida, and is struggling a little bit with her health. She wanted to get a little bit better. I had her originally scheduled I was going to go kindergarten, first grade, through that. So you are the first visitor, and I must say I'm much more nervous about you.
Oh, I'm honored.
Welcome. How are you? You look beautiful. It's so good to see your face.
It's good to see your face. I'm very well. Very, very well.
You taught me in first grade. So I'm going to go to the beginning of your career. I was 6, and all I know is that they put away all the finger paints and all the fun stuff and the cookies and the milk and the nap time that we had in kindergarten. And I came to you, and you were the first taskmaster I ever had in my life. You were the first person to ever tell me no. I think I gave you a really, really hard time. So when Don Moeller said, "Who taught you first grade?" He sent me a very cryptic text back in June in the middle of the pandemic. And I said, Julie Janda, Miss Janda was my first grade teacher, and I always go by the florist on York Road in Cockeysville and wonder if she's related because I see the name, and I figured you were beautiful, you got married, you probably had a different last name, you probably moved to Denver or something, I didn't know. And he said, "She's in my den right now with my wife. She's in Linda's book club."
Book club, right. I know. Small world, isn't it, Nestor?
Small to more positive is what we do. So I know absolutely nothing about you other than I've had this picture in my life, and I'm going to pull it up on Facebook.
Crazy.
I've had this picture my whole life, okay?
Yes.
And I pulled this out. I wrote a book in 2006 about my dad. So I was looking for pictures about baseball. This was one of the earliest pictures I could find where I'm holding a bat. And I think the shirt has some baseball. No, the shirt is south of the border. I think my stepbrother came back with his camper from south of the border. He didn't bring me any tacos or a hat, but he brought me a south of the border shirt. So I'll pull that picture up because I've colorized it and fixed it.
Oh, nice.
And so I've had this picture. So when he texted me and he said, "Julie Janda is on my veranda right now reading books with my wife," I said, I got a picture of Julie. I know right where it is, I don't have a lot of pictures of a lot of I can't find a picture of Miss Northington, who was my second grade teacher. Miss Wassel, I have the original class picture, but I got to find it. I got to find it. But give me your story. How did you wind up at Colgate? And you apparently hadn't heard of me in 30 years. And I hadn't heard of you in 35 years.
Well, the interesting part is I have heard of you for over the last 30 years through Don. Don and I worked together in Baltimore County. I started my career in Baltimore County in 1970. So you were my 5th class.
That's why you were so good at disciplining me.
Well,
I wasn't your first rodeo.
No, you weren't. But I have to tell you, I was in the classroom for 7 years at Colgate. And whenever anyone asked me, about my career in education, which was about 41 years, I always said the very best time of any educator is when you're in the classroom with teachers. It's such a joy to be with children and to watch them have those aha moments. It's just incredible. And I thoroughly enjoyed every minute at Colgate Elementary. I don't know if you were in the class. I know one year we made apple pies. Were you in the class that made apple pies?
Very much could have been me. I mean, I remember those kinds of activities.
Yeah, and that's what I remember is just the joy of watching all of you just go, oh my God, this is phenomenal. So it's a great experience. So I was in the classroom for 7 years, left the classroom, became a resource teacher in Baltimore County.
What does that mean?
I was kind of like a mentor to teachers in school, in a variety of schools. So we'd go in and work with teachers. And
you were a teacher coach, a coach for the teacher.
Kind of like a teacher coach, right? From there, I moved into administration and was an assistant principal at Arbutus Middle School, and then was also the principal at Arbutus Middle School.
Where are you from?
I grew up in Baltimore City. I grew up in Overley off of Bel Air Road, if you know where Bel Air Road is, in on the eastern part of Baltimore City. Went to St. Anthony's Elementary School, and went to a small high school in Baltimore City called Our Lady of Pompeii High School, and then went to Stevenson. I went to Stevenson and Towson for undergraduate and graduate work.
You didn't go to Stevenson. It was called something else.
It was called Villa Julie at the time. So I went to Villa Julie, and then transferred over to Towson University, and then finished my degree there, and then went on and secured a master's at Towson as well.
So when I went into kindergarten, I had some unique issues. I was missing a finger. I had a finger cut off in a lawnmower when I was 3. I read at probably a 6th grade level when you found me. So I'm 50. I'll be 52 next week, and it's part of a whole celebration to have all of you on. I'm wearing the shirt, by the way, because it's a very similar shirt to my 1st grade picture, which I'll show you in a minute.
Oh, okay.
I wore this for you. I picked it out, and my wife, when I bought it, my wife said, "Why do you want that shirt?" I'm like, "It reminds me of my 1st grade picture, so I want to have it." So, and it's nice. It's it's like a hill figure. It's a little big for me because I've lost some weight since I bought it, but. So, I was thinking about like all of my Colgate memories and the thoughts of like teachers. Mr. Connolly was our elementary school first principal. I guess he gave you your job.
Yep.
He then went to Grange, right? So I would still see him around. Dr. Kallmeyer was sort of an uptown dude who came down and like he was doctor, doctor, and he didn't even have needles or make appointments or have optics, I didn't even know about that when you were 6 or 7. And he was such a cultured man, and I really remember him going to Iceland and bringing in slides, and we had like a whole assembly where he showed us all Iceland. And now that I've been to Iceland, I've been all over the world, it really helped me to have really cultured, interesting, different. I had such a wide variety of teachers in my life because Julie, I don't want to be disrespectful to my neighborhood or whatever, but I grew up in Archie Bunker's Dundalk, and I'm happy to talk about that. I'm happy to talk about why there were no African Americans in my elementary school pictures or my middle school pictures. It took me 40 years to figure that out. Now that I'm a grown up and I've seen the country divide, it's why Baltimore Positive exists. I think it needs to be talked about, certainly. But in talking about my elementary school experience and the teachers, when I think of Lemuel Hinson, who was murdered, when I think of Janice Northington, who was an African-American teacher in my 2nd grade, and what she might have encountered.
Joanne Northington.
Joanne Northington. My bad. I'm sorry. Yeah, do you know where she is? Because I'm looking for her.
I know she stayed in Baltimore County, and I think even became an administrator. But it's been I need
to find her because she's a hero of mine at this point. Because I can't imagine.
She was lovely.
I can't imagine in the early 70s, in the aftermath of, what this country went through, and I know the parents of the kids I went to school with, a lot of them gone. I know my parents, my mother was born in 1919 in South Carolina. She had help in her kitchen, So, I remember all these stories, and they're different when you're 50 than when you're 6 and you show up. But the teachers, I had Mr. Chetlet at art, who was the first guy who had long hair. My father, if he came back from the grave right now, would be upset with me. If I could find Mr. Chetlet, I want to bring him on. And Miss Johnson, do you remember Betsy Johnson? She was a little crazy.
I absolutely do. And I saw Betsy, maybe 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago.
She was alive? She's still alive?
Well, I don't know if she's still alive now, but 7 or 8 years ago, I saw her. I saw her at a bagel shop right here in Lutherville, where I live.
If anybody can find Betsy Johnson and she's alive, or her son Eric, or any of their relatives, I'm looking for Betsy Johnson. So shout out to Colgate. She was my all-time favorite teacher. If she's alive, I hope she hears me say it. And it's no offense to you or Miss Wassler or any of the other wonderful teachers.
No.
She really changed my life.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you had Carolyn Houck.
Oh.
Yeah, Carolyn, just a fine person. That's extraordinary lady. Extraordinary.
Yeah, I can't even talk about her.
Yeah.
That'll mess me up. But
yeah,
you like this person a lot. This is my 3rd grade. Oh, I have it on Facebook.
Yeah.
This will help me out. I'm going to share it. Julie Janda is my guest. I'm tearing up, as expected. You know what? I'm gonna share this out, and everybody can check it out on Facebook. While I get my composure. But this is the shirt I was wearing, I guess, in 1st grade. I don't know who dressed me.
Yes.
Hold on. I've lost it. I think I've lost you. Hold on. Here we go. I'm on Facebook, and I'm a mess. Here we go. Live radio. Here we go. There we go. These are all the pictures. So this is my 3rd. Why is it not popping up? What's going on here? Facebook's playing funky with me. There's you.
Yes, look at that.
Look at. See, I called you young and beautiful, just like you are now. See that?
And that was Ingrid. That was Ingrid Speaker.
That's Ingrid Speaker. She actually taught my son. She taught Barry at Colgate Elementary.
Yeah.
You know what? I would have been better off just using the damn pictures, because I have the actual pictures here. Now, this is Miss McDermott, right? So Miss McDermott was someone.
Ellen McDermott. Oh, I loved Ellen McDermott.
Talk about Ellen McDermott, because she was my 3rd grade teacher, and I didn't have her very long. I was sort of an elevated reading student.
Right.
And I got sent to Carolyn Houck's class to read in 2nd and 3rd grade. And I was a little kid. I was born late in 68, so I was sort of on the smaller side. And then I was always reading with I graduated at 16. Miss Janda. By the way, you haven't even given your real name.
I was just going to say.
Your real name.
So my name is Julie Simasik, and for you, when you say you grew up in, down in Colgate, the whole Dundalk area. Well, I married a Dundalk guy.
That's why you turned out well. Look at how good you turned out. That's why you're aging and happy.
Right. So I married a guy by the name of Dennis Simasik, and he grew up on Dunran Road and went to Dundalk High. So again, some other connections. So.
Well, Miss McDermott I didn't have her long, because I got sent to Miss Kelly's 4th grade class, and then I graduated in the class of 85. I started elementary school in the class of 86, so all of my classmates, I still know them, and on Facebook. Brian Funk can't wait to see this segment with you that I found you.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I would just ask you this, because I've got a million questions that I've always wanted to ask you. But the first one would just be sort of the courage it took to take on these kids. By the way, I do have our classroom picture, so I want to get that up, and I want to get the Facebook working the right way, because I found and I'll hold this up, and it's on Facebook if anybody really wants to see it. But this is our real 1st grade class. And
right.
And so every day, these kids came in, some with 2 parents, some with 1, some being raised by a grandparent, some with 4.5 fingers, all different kinds of children that you took on 8 hours a day and made sure none of us cut, fell, hit our heads, gave each other the flu, beat each other up, any of that stuff. I just have such admiration for all of you. I really do.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I wanted to be a teacher from 5 years old. I always wanted to be a teacher.
Why? What made you want to be a teacher?
I don't know. I grew up in a house. I'm the oldest of four. I have three other siblings. My mom and dad always just really valued education. And I, going to Catholic school, I actually had some just extraordinary teachers. And when I went to high school at Our Lady of Pompeii, we had a club called the Future Teachers of America. So I became the president of that club. And believe it or not, I mean, obviously you wouldn't be able to do anything like that in today's world. But back in the 60s, since I was the president of the Future Teachers of America, and we had an elementary school and a high school in the same building because it was a really small school. If there was a teacher who was ill for a day, they would let me go down and teach the class, the first grade and first and second grade children. So I had a firsthand experience in high school of what it was like to be a teacher. And I have to tell you, I just was in there and I went, all right, this is so cool.
Were you a babysitter?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time.
Okay. All right. So you just love little children.
Yeah. And I had three siblings, and my dad had put up a huge blackboard in our playroom. And so we would play school. I would play school with Teresa and Peggy and Stephen. They were my students. And so anyway.
So you played teacher like someone played mom or nurse or astronaut or I played baseball player. I wanted... All I ever wanted to be was a sports writer, that's all I ever wanted to be from the time I held a wiffle ball bat. So people ask me how I'm doing this at 52. I love sports and I loved writing and communicating and, but the background I had, I remember in first grade, you taught us about the mail, which might be a good time to talk about that in America right now.
Exactly.
We did mailbox, right? We had the whole school. We took all the Christmas cards for everyone in the community and became the mailbox. So we would tell the parents, don't put your Christmas cards in the mailbox, send them to school, because we're going to show the students how the U.S. mail works. Maybe we should show the President of the United States how the U.S. mail works. What do you think?
I think it'd be a wonderful idea.
I do remember that from first grade. Do you remember that part of the curriculum?
I do remember that. I remember things like we would sing Christmas carols, when we would get close to Christmas, we would sing Christmas carols and Christmas songs. It would be like, all right, boys and girls, let's take 5 minutes and let's sing our favorite Christmas song. And the whole class, we'd all sing these wonderful songs. I remember. And I remember we would always make a little Christmas present for our parents. And that was always fun to do. And I remember, I think we made a lot of Christmas ornaments, or we made little picture frames for our parents. And
Kathy Wassell's going to freak because this is why I want to have you on. Because in kindergarten, we had paper plates with the hand.
Print, right.
I have mine, and I had it last year. My son found it and gave it to me. I need to break that out for Kathy Wassell because we did that in kindergarten.
Yes.
And it says it says Nestor 1973. So right. I remember. Wow. See, this is why having you on's good. I knew putting that picture up of Miss Speaker was going to freak you out too, because I know you guys were close.
We were. Ingrid and I were very close. She was an extraordinary teacher, and I really loved working with her and being part of her team. But you had asked me earlier about Ellen McDermott. Ellen McDermott was just such a fine lady and such a great teacher. And actually, she was a mentor to me because, again, I'm
going to share the screen now, Miss Janda. Pronounce it Simasik. Simasik. I've not tried the Simasik. You're going to always be Miss Janda to me.
That's okay.
You know that. But this is Miss McDermott. There she is.
There's Ellen. Yeah.
And her background in teaching you, in mentoring you, what was available to a young lady like you to be a teacher? I mean, I hear teachers in 2020 talk about having to buy their own Kleenex and their own toilet paper and their own supplies. Every teacher I ever knew, and then every girl I ever dated who was a teacher in the 20s, because I dated a few teachers, they'd have that time in August where they had to get the construction paper out and get the walls to get. I don't even know what a classroom looks like. And when they build this Jetsons Colgate Elementary, because they're rebuilding it, I would love for you to be there there, and I hope that they bring a bunch of you and us and all of us together. But I don't even know how we learn in an era of tablets and whatnot. And I'm trying to get my arms around not being a first grader and having Miss Janda have to teach me on a computer right now, and I have such incredible memories of everything about elementary school, nothing about middle school other than Mr. Statham, who I'm hoping to round up next month. But I loved elementary school, and I loved the gathering and being with these people, every single day. Some of them, John Stasic stole my Facebook friend, Brian Funk stole my friend. So like these people that are in your life forever.
Right. Back and I started teaching in 1970, and back at that time, I felt like we had a classroom that was fairly well equipped, but there isn't a teacher out there that doesn't use her own funds to supplement what you have in a school. They always bring more materials into the classroom. But I will tell you, as a group of teachers, and this is why I really had such admiration for Ellen McDermott and even for Carolyn Houck as well. Don't
talk about her anymore. You'll make me cry.
I know. Well, what I wanted to say is
we're going to have to talk about her, but because she was the best.
But as teachers, you were a little sisterhood and brotherhood. We took care of each other. We shared materials. We shared ideas. And so I think that type of camaraderie, and certainly at Colgate, which was, a small neighborhood school. I mean, we knew the families. I knew the families intimately. I remember one student I had is Lenny Zabardino, and I remember Mrs. Zabardino would invite me to her house for lunch, because she only lived a block from the school. I still have fond memories of going to Zanino's to get sandwiches.
Well, wait till Sandy Zeno and Larry and all my Facebook friends hear that. I'll give you a blast from the past. Miss Renacha in the cafeteria, I'd always ask for a chicken leg, and she said I got two legs, and she'd show me her two legs.
Yeah.
Now all of her kids are my friends. She's still beautiful, and then she lived right across the street from the cafeteria.
Yeah.
I mean,
Betty Renato. It was Betty.
Absolutely,
Betty
absolutely.
I absolutely remember her, and I remember the food in the cafeteria at Colgate being really good.
Yes.
I mean, because we had these wonderful ladies that would make the food every day. And
I would sell my soul for that peanut butter confection right now, and those really buttery broccoli. Oh man, I haven't eaten that since the '70s, Miss Janda.
And I remember the pizza being really good there. So you're right. A different time, a different era.
And we're talking about how good elementary school food is. We're geezing here, Miss Janda.
I know.
If you just tuned in, pronounce your last name again, because I want everybody to get it right, because I keep screwing it up. It must be a Dundalk thing. Your husband's going to smack me.
No, it's a Simasik.
Simasik. I want to get it. Simasik. I want to get it phonetically. She'll always be Miss Janda to me. She taught me elementary school in first grade, and I've been pulling the pictures up and trying to have some fun on our Zoom here. We're celebrating teacher appreciation to honor Don, I think. By the way, there is the shirt that was in my first grade picture.
Look,
so if you see the current shirt that I have on and you're wondering why, I got that shirt at Epstein's in Highlandtown. My mother told me she didn't want me to have it. I insisted because I liked the flowers on it, and my mother had pink roses in the garden just like that. So I guess that's that was the feminine side of me coming out. The bat here, someone has already hit my Facebook and ask if that's a regular bat or a wiffle bat.
I think it's wiffle.
It's a wiffle bat.
Yeah.
This is Sean Carpenter. This is Scott Smith. I'm just looking, looking
Sean.
at
I remember Sean.
You remember Sean Carpenter, Scott Smith,
yes.
and of course, Ingrid Speaker. Is she still with us?
I don't know.
I hope so.
I haven't seen her in a long time. I remember her sister also was a teacher at Colgate. Her name was Donna. Maybe Donna Pletkus.
She taught my son.
Yeah.
My son went to Colgate, and my son still lives in the neighborhood, and they're rebuilding our school. So I'm just proud of that. I mean, I went over to Dundalk. they did a crazy thing. They put me in the Dundalk Hall of Fame. So Rasig made this thing up here in my HOF, and so I have my Hall of Fame thing up behind me here in the studio. And this is about 3 years ago, and we went over to – it was 3 years, but it was right after my mom died, and I hadn't been to the new school. And I see what they're doing with these schools, because Colgate was like built in like 1920 or something.
20s, yes.
Like it had an old, like the schoolhouse from A Christmas Story. Like literally, It was it had the blackboards and the coat room, and
exactly.
I mean, and there were 3 wings to Colgate. It was built. Part of it was built in the 20s, part was built in the 50s, and then part was built in the 60s. And it had bomb shelters. It had all of that stuff.
You know, I know.
Like literally. And so I want to pull my share back up, because a lot of my friends do watch, and Colgate people. I'm looking for Joanne Northington, and I apologize for getting her name wrong, her first name wrong. Listen, I didn't know you were Julie until later on, and then I just made fun that you actually had a first name. I had to think of Miss Young's first name. It was Suzanne, and I think I may have found her in Pennsylvania. By the way, can I make a public service announcement, Miss Janda?
Absolutely.
Very important we do this. If you live in Pennsylvania, vote, vote. I need everybody to vote in Pennsylvania. I'm holding up my ballot. Please vote. If you live in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Maryland, DC, vote. We need you to vote. Okay, that's my little public service announcement. I do that in every segment here, because you taught me right. I had good teachers. Does that work? I did.
It did.
So this is my 3rd grade class here. And, there's some familiar faces. This is Miss DePietro, and she was like the assistant, and I think she was training to be a teacher, if I'm not mistaken. And she was wonderful, and I had an incredible bond with her. I also had there was a man named Mr. Stringfield who came for a very – Brian?
Yeah, Brian Stringfield.
Was that with an I or an A or a Y?
IA.
I'm trying to find these people. Mr. Stringfield was only in our school for a couple of months, and he was just such a wonderful man.
He was.
If anybody can find Brian Stringfield, I want to find him. So I'm kidding. So Ronnie Harris is still on my Facebook page. Danny Douglas is looking for you and was trying to watch this live because he wanted to see you. I've lost touch with Richie Buss and Michelle Paczynski. Kelly Rommel is still very much on my Facebook page.
Right.
Let's see, who else do I know? Joyce Dotson, her sister Dawn, is on my page. Cheryl Bowling was still very much in my life a few years ago. Jerry Sprouse is still on my Facebook page. I don't know where Phil Sparzak or Eric Gunn. Let's see. He was the son Michael Hinson. These were the family that were the family of the St. Peter's Church preachers. Mark Cornea shows up on some of my Facebook feeds as well. Renee Litchfield, Rick Huth is still with me. I saw him a couple weeks ago, and John Stasic is still very much in my life. I had the Greek food with him a couple of years ago. So, and this here is the
look
the
baseball team. Yeah,
so this is our baseball team. And
the team.
Was this called Flag Day? Can you tell? Was Flag Day, was that like in June they put all the 6th graders versus the 5th graders, and we would all kind of get together and wear colors, or Color Day? Was it something like that? Do you remember that?
Could have been. I do remember that. I don't know if it was called Flag Day. I think it may have been like a meat day, where it was a fun day where we did a lot of outside activities.
It was an all-day family thing.
All
there
day,
were
a fair.
There were like sack races with your dad and your mom. It was like and it always was like in May. It was always like a kiss off to the 6th graders.
It was near the end of the school year.
Right.
Near the end.
Colgate. We did something at Colgate Elementary you can't do anymore because of pollution. And I want you to, remember this. We did balloon ascension. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do remember.
We all got together and everybody went over to Bricado's at the mall and the liquor store. They all had to buy little things, and we let balloons off to kill all the ducks, I guess, right? Crazy stuff we did in the 70s. Leaded gas, right?
Right. Now, do you remember I had an aide in my room. It would have either been Mrs. Coleman, Emma Coleman, or Mary Lou Marks. I think it was Mary Lou Marks was my instructional assistant in my classroom, similar to Mrs. DePietro in Ellen's classroom.
Mrs. DePietro was awesome. I loved her.
She was. I remember her.
Yeah, I have so many teachers I love. And college, Julie Simon taught me the medium is the message. And in college, I'm having her on. I have Don on all the time, How do you know Don? Like, I got to ask you, because this whole thing started where you were in Don's house. And I'm thinking, how is Don housing my 1st grade teacher who I haven't seen since 1978?
Well, I've known Don probably for almost 30 years. We were educators together in Baltimore County, and we became friends when we were both principals of middle schools. And so that was kind of our connection. And, we just, we were like-minded people and both had a passion for, really trying to make sure that we created a wonderful learning environment for students. But our connection was when we were middle school principals. But the interesting part is I was listening to one of the Baltimore Positive shows, and you mentioned, you mentioned Carolyn Houck's name. And all of a sudden, I just went, Nestor, wait a minute. Is this the same Nestor that I taught? It just, because Don has talked about you forever. But it was that connection when you mentioned Colgate.
Come on, how many Nestors did you teach, Julie? Come on.
I know, but he never said your last name. He always just said Nestor. And so I never, Nestor on the radio. And so as soon as I heard you say Colgate, Mrs. Houck, I went, oh my gosh, I believe that's a Nestor I taught in first grade. And that's when I called Don and said, Don, I said, I think I taught Nestor in first grade. And so that's kind of how this all came about. And that was back in June.
Well, I have your class picture here. I'm going to pull this up. We've already shown one picture of you, but I want to show everybody how beautiful you were in 1974.
Oh, you're very sweet.
And look at this. So here we go. This is Dr. Kohlmeyer. Tina Jenko has checked in. Tina checked in on my Facebook, and she wanted to watch live as well. And Philip Sparzak, Mildred Summers, and Sean Grasso, and there she is. There she is. And I don't know why the pictures are also look at these white shoes.
I know.
On that day here. It's well, it is so.
This was a great class. This was a really good. I remember Tina Jenko. I remember she was so cute and funny. I remember her being. I just enjoyed. Well, I enjoyed every student.
She couldn't say my name, so she called me Master.
Master.
And it was like I Dream a Genie. She called me Master. And it was the funniest thing. Tina, hi, how are you? I hope you're well. And I hope that everybody's well from Colgate. And
I remember
how many years were you at Colgate? Just because
I was at Colgate for 7 years.
7 years. Okay. So you taught 150 of us, maybe-ish, kind of sort of.
At least. And then I was a resource teacher at Colgate after that. So I had a lot of years at Colgate, but my years as in the classroom was 7 years.
All right. Well, I got the APP ad on you, Miss Janda. We got to find Joanne Northington. I'm looking for you, Suzanne Young Hesterberg. And if you're in Pennsylvania, please vote. I'm begging you. Brian Stringfield, we're looking for. I think, I know Miss Kelly has left us. I know Miss McDermott's left us.
That's right.
And if anybody can find Betsy Johnson, that would be the score of the century. So I got to tell you a Betsy Johnson story. And
she was sixth grade. Was she sixth grade? Sixth grade, right?
And all the parents didn't like her, and she was very different, and she was very off curriculum, and she taught me how to say thank you and you're welcome in 30 languages.
Right. That was
she made us go to Longwood Gardens, where I took my wife this summer because it was someplace I could take her during the pandemic, and I thought of her all summer long because of Longwood Gardens. She taught me current events. She kept me after school and made me read newspapers with her. She knew I wanted to be a journalist, and she was like, you can do this. She took me. So I found all my old report cards. Not from elementary school was weird because you gave us like 1s and 2s and 3s. It was like competition things. It wasn't like an A, a B, a C, or a D. I know my dad freaked out when I went to elementary school and I came home and I didn't have an A, a B, or C, or a D. What the hell do you mean? What kind of school is this? My dad was totally Archie Bunker, right? So, but I found my Iowa scores and my California scores and 99 percentiles in reading and all of that stuff. And Miss Johnson had a whole different vision for me. As a high achiever, gifted, talented kid, she wanted me to go to McDonough badly. And she got me into McDonough one Saturday morning. My parents got me out of bed at 6 a.m, drove us an hour out to McDonough. And I think it was basically the Iowa test, or it was the same test, fill in the bubble, but they gave you half the amount of time to do it. So they really wanted to see whether you belonged at the prep school, the preparatory school. And I sort of was, I remember being very uncomfortable with it. My grandfather lived out there. It was a long way from home. It was very Pensy prep, and I hadn't even read Catcher in the Rye yet, Miss Monday, who I'm also going to chase. But I sort of flunked. I don't think I did well on the test. My parents didn't have 10 grand. My parents didn't have bus money. You know what I mean? So I never followed that thing. But then my parents were like, do you want to go to Curly? Do you want to go to Mount Carmel? I was not eligible for Catholic or IND, but I liked girls, at that point. So I would have been more into that. So I went to Holabird and I went to Dundalk, and Don and I have talked about the race wars and, the Kenwood Dundalk thing and why there were no children of color anywhere near.
Right.
I was the darkest skinned kid anywhere in our school. So we've had these conversations as we've gotten older, and it's really allowed me to learn more about myself and made me a lot more well-rounded when I have Barry Williams or his sister on the program or Nancy Pelosi on the program to sort of understand that the America I saw in the 70s and the 80s, to some degree, I think it's come back to haunt us 40 years later. But to understand it better has been a gift to me at this point in my life. And it's really a gift that you're still alive and well. And I think of you every time I pass Janda Florist. And I don't know whether you have – I just see it, and I'm wondering whatever happened to her. And I just want to give you like a big virtual
Same
like
here.
Hug,
big hug. Yes.
Thank you.
This has been extraordinary. I can't tell you how much I was looking forward to this, and so proud of you. So proud of what you're doing. I mean, you're an extraordinary young man, and thank you for all that you're doing.
I'm 52. You're calling me young.
You are young. You are young.
Look at that. And see, I got the shirt out. I wanted to hold this up because I told my wife I would do that. So have I aged? How do I look?
You look wonderful.
My hair.
Absolutely wonderful. I love the hair. I have a great nephew who is 4.5 years old that I see all the time, and he has long hair. So I love your hair.
I'm trying to take advantage of the plague. No, I mean, if we're going to have a plague, I mean, hell, I missed the comet back in '86. If we're going to have a plague, I'm going to maximize this plague and try to do as much good as I can do. Thank you so much, and I hope at some point we have like coffee or like I'm old enough to drink now. We could have a beer, if you want.
I agree.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Nestor. Thank you again.
Julie Simasik. Did I pronounce that right?
You pronounced it perfectly.
There you go. I call her Miss Janda, and she taught me about the post office, which I hope all of you are using to the best of your ability to vote and free our country from this madness. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570. We're appreciating teachers. Everybody should appreciate teachers. It's Teachers Appreciation Month or year or millennium. We are Baltimore Positive.